Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talk Scottish Football for a slightly different video. It's just me today, no Ryan. Just me sort of reacting to some news that came out of Dunfermline today, obviously my team. The news came out that they've released 17 players who are out of contract at the end of this month, and it's caused a lot of discussion. Obviously, Dunfermline fans sad to see this news. Obviously, a lot of fans' favourites have been released, but also from fans of other clubs who are maybe seeing this as signs of what's to come with Scottish football clubs releasing players. Due to the sort of current situation we find ourselves in. For me personally, we had Lee Ashcroft, Tom Beadling, Paul Payton, Joe Thompson, Danny Devine, Ryan Scully, Andy Ryan and Callum Smith all leave, who were all sort of first team players. So for me it's kind of sad to see some of them go. Obviously no one wants to see anyone lose their job, especially in this time, but from a purely footballer's perspective, Paul Payton was club captain, Lee Ashcroft the vice captain. So they're going to be big misses. Guys like Tom Beadle Joe Thompson have been fans' favourites in their time at Dunfermline. So yeah, just kind of want to touch on that and basically what it means for the club, what it means for the players, what it means for the supporters, and maybe how it will affect things going forward in football in terms of players in and out of contract over the next few months. I think the sort of striking thing for me when I saw it was the first name I read was Paul Payton. To see him leave, I mean, it's no surprise to people that know me and people who watch videos. I'm a massive Paul Payton fan. As Dunfermline captain last season, he was absolutely brilliant. He was a real fan's favourite. You're talking about someone who the year before was at Falkirk. Dunfermline's big rivals. Got relegated there. Many people probably wrote him off, said he was probably done in terms of playing at the Championship. Certainly when he arrived at Dunfermline, there was definitely a few people who were, there was some raised eyebrows, to be honest. I'll admit I wasn't expecting him to have the impact he did on the squad. He came in and, yeah, wow, what a captain he's been for the club. The way he's sort of galvanised this young group of players we've got, the way he's interacted with the supporters and all the rest of it. He's just someone who's really got the club. There'll be many Dunfermline fans like myself who are absolutely gutted to see the news that he's been let go. We've got to hope that maybe when this clears up that guys like Payton and Ashcroft might come back into the fold as we get some clarity in the situation. But yeah, for Payton, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, towards the end of his career, I'm just kind of shocked that you have someone who's only had a year at the club and he's made such an impact on it. I mean, he's going to be someone who'll be remembered fondly by Dunfermline fans for years to come. Someone who really got the club, because I think we've had some players at Dunfermline in the past sort of 6, 7, 8 years who have come in and maybe not quite got the club, because if we're honest, Dunfermline as a club in terms of stature, support, fan base, facility, stadium, all the rest of it, for the last 6, 7, 8 years have been performing below where they should be. I mean, Dunfermline have got everything about them suggests they should be a Premiership club, and yes, that's no free pass to get there, obviously, but to work for it. But we've had players come in who maybe don't understand the demands you get of Dunfermline supporters. Dunfermline supporters can be moany buggers at times, trust me, I know, but that's because a lot of Dunfermline fans expect and want the team to be up near the top of the Championship and into the Premiership. We're talking about, so many of our supporters have seen Dunfermline, up in the top half of the Premiership. Only today, actually, it's the anniversary of the 2004 Cup Final where, if it wasn't for Bobo Baldi and a handball that wasn't seen, we might have beaten Celtic to a Scottish Cup that sent us into Europe. So many of our fans are used to seeing Dunfermline up there, and we've had so many players who haven't understood that Dunfermline as a club should be pushing higher than they are. Payton did that from the start. He got the club. He did. The amount of times we'd get beaten, he'd come out in his interviews and say, it wasn't good enough. But also he was great for because obviously we're going through a transitional period. I've said it before. We've got a younger squad. Payton was a great link between sort of managing expectations of the fans and stuff, and trying to help the fans understand that we've got a young squad. They're going to take time to improve and all the rest of it. And yeah, he's just been absolutely brilliant, and also on the pitch as well. Not just his sort of leadership, but he's put it about in some games in that midfield fantastically. Yeah, he's not as fast as he once was, but games like the United game at home, putting it about like I haven't seen the likes of in the Fair midfield for a long time. So and I definitely felt he had another year in him, and I know he wanted to stay. Having spoke to him, he really wanted to stay. He's someone who's enjoyed his time at the club, enjoyed the relationship he's had with the fans. So I'm still holding out hope that when this all sort of sorts itself out, that we might see him again at Dunfermline top. I think I speak for every Dunfermline fan. We would love to see that happen, and if it is the end of Payton's time at Dunfermline, I'm sure every Dunfermline fan will wish him the very best. Also, another one that for me, I was really sad to see on the list was Lee Ashcroft. Ashy's been at Dunfermline now since 2016. And he's just. Barring one sort of the season before last, when he got the captain's armband, he didn't have a great season. By his own admission, by Stevie Crawford's admission, and he's been a really solid player for Dunfermline. Another one who I think Lee Ashcroft could easily play for a club in a higher position than Dunfermline. I don't see why Ashcroft couldn't be playing for a team challenging for the Championship promotion next year, or even a Hamilton, St Mirren, or someone like that in the Premiership. Ashcroft's I think Lee Ashcroft's one of those we've noticed him when he's not in the team. The sort of stability he brings is. And he's another one whose relationship with the fans has always been good. Ash is always the first over at the fans after every game, win or lose. And yeah, the season he had as captain didn't work out, but this season he came back, twice the player. And he had a really good season there, including that goal. I mean, if there's one thing you're going to remember Lee Ashcroft for off the back of this season, it's that goal against Ayr United, an absolute wonder goal. So yeah, another one really sad to see go, but yeah, again, we're going to keep, I'm going to kind of hoping that we'll maybe see Ashcroft again when we get a bit of clarity. Moving on to some others, Tom Beadling, Beadling's been a fan's favourite since he came to Dunfermline. It was clear to me that under Stevie Crawford never really fancied him. It was pretty obvious. He never really got a run of games. And injuries as well have hampered Beadling's time at Dunfermline, but that moment at Celtic Park this season was another thing we'll remember for a long time, the goal he scored there. In his first season, goals against Falkirk, big performances there, and that pushed towards the playoffs in that first season. And someone who's just been a real fan's favourite since he came in. Really sad to see him go. If I'm honest, I was expecting it anyway. I think, regardless of what's going on that might force some of these decisions, I think Beadling, it felt like a natural sort of end to his time at Dunfermline this summer. So I'm not overly surprised to see him go, albeit disappointed to see him go. He's someone who I've certainly enjoyed when he has been playing for Dunfermline, albeit he probably never reached the heights we all thought he was capable of. Joe Thompson as well, another one who last season was... the best player in a dreadful season for Dunfermline was Joe Thompson. He was the shining light in that team. It seemed to me that when Crawford came in, Thompson would be the sort of player that would, really be in and around the first team. And yeah, he had that terrible injury, but he got back to it. I think maybe October time. Maybe he got back, and it just seemed like maybe it was just struggling to get fitness and match sharpness when you've got other guys in there who are playing week in week out. But it never seemed that Crawford fancied Thompson. I thought that maybe there might have been another year's deal on the table for him, maybe. But yeah, again, it's like Beadling, where I wouldn't have been too shocked if he was to go anyway. And then you've got guys like Danny Devine, who is much maligned by some Dunfermline fans throughout his time at the club. But this season, certainly at the turn of the year, he was player of the month. I can't remember which month it was, and he really turned it round. And I thought he probably would have been offered a deal of an extra year, just for that improvement in performances this season, the second half of the season. So, seeing him go again is probably a decision that's been pushed by the circumstances rather than maybe what would have been made on playing merit. Andy Ryan and Callum Smith, yeah, I think the two of them were probably going to leave. Andy Ryan, who, it felt like every season he's been at Dunfermline, he's shown a moment, a couple of games where you thought, right, he's really going to hit the ground running and be that second striker we've been looking for, whether it to be for Clark McManus in the first year. Last year, obviously, he never really got a big run of games, but this season he started the season really well. When Nisbet up front the League Cup, he looked like it was going to be, his season that he was really going to nail down a starting spot at Dunfermline. Never really came to fruition. Before he went on loan, he was kind of our impact sub, and he did a decent job of that. You think of the Ayr United game I mentioned with Ashcroft's goal earlier, he was the guy that came off and won us that game. So, but again, he's another one that I kind of felt this was going to be the summer he moved on. Same for Callum Smith. Smith, he's been here for a good few years now, came through the youth ranks, but it did feel like a sort of natural point for those two to move on. And Ryan Scully as well. It was clear as day Scully was going to leave. A guy who in his first spell at Dunfermline was Player of the Year twice, I think. Didn't have a great season. Kind of got bombed out in January time, and it was pretty obvious he was going to leave. Never nice, and these young lads as well who've been released who we maybe haven't seen in the first team. It's difficult for us as fans to know what would have been enforced by the circumstances and who would have been released genuinely. One thing I will say though is I've seen a lot of fans of other teams who have gone, oh my god, Dunfermline have released 17 players. If I'm being honest, I probably expect 13 of those to go anyway, regardless. And probably at least 13. I would have expected, Payton and Ashcroft definitely would have been offered new deals. I think Danny Devine probably would have been, and then maybe one of Beadling or Thompson, but it could easily have just been Payton and Ashcroft that stayed. So for all, yes, it's concerning to see clubs release this amount of players in one go. I think a lot of them would have gone anyway. The vast majority of them would have gone anyway. So it's we've got to caveat the sort of numbers and the circumstances that people think are causing this number of players to be released with the reality that some probably would have gone anyway. and as I've said, Payton and Ashcroft, I would like to think when we get some clarity, will be offered deals and a chance to come back in. Um, but yeah, it's a really tough one to gauge because ultimately, you don't really know the decision process unless you're in that boardroom at East End Park. Clubs are in a position now where there's so much uncertainty, and I almost didn't say that word properly. Uncertainty and sort of fear of the unknown, because we don't know when football's going to start, especially for championship clubs. People are talking about behind closed doors and stuff. I said on the podcast the other day, I don't know how that's viable. If you take away gate receipts and all the rest of it for these clubs, they're going to struggle to survive. So yes, we knew tough decisions were going to come. Seeing it, written down this morning, was a bit of well, not a shock to Dunfermline fans, but definitely it was a disappointment to see some of those guys go. And I think as far as other clubs in Scotland go, we're going to see lists like this soon. But I think, probably more shocking departures from other clubs. I think Payton and Ashcroft, as I said, were probably the only two I really was shocked. Well, not shocked to see go, because obviously I had a feeling all the out of contract players were going to be let go, but the only two who I don't think would have been released under normal circumstances. I think for other clubs, you're going to see multiple players from their first team squads who they would ideally like to keep on, that they just have to let go. I've seen people talking about Kevin Nisbet this morning. Obviously in January there was big bids for him, we turned them down. People saying, bet you wish you'd taken that money now. The thing is with Nisbet now, it puts Dunfermline in a really tough situation, because is anyone going to have the money to buy him this summer? I mean, probably not what he's worth, definitely. And then you risk losing him for free next year. So it's, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And yeah, for all that people might say they should have taken the money in January, there's no way they could have foreseen this. I can see, it being another few weeks of tough decisions at clubs all throughout Scotland, and you kind of got to hope that these players will have some clarity as well, because I think, I've said it before, with these players at this sort of level, championship level, etc., we kind of forget, we just think of them as footballers, financially well off, all the rest of it. We don't really think these guys now don't have a sort of primary source of income for God knows how long. I mean, people are talking about it could be next year before football gets back at this level. For those guys, this is a really worrying time. So yeah, it's sad to see all these guys leave, because ultimately you never want to see anyone lose a job in any line of work. And ultimately, as I've said, for Payton and Ashcroft, they're going to be big misses for the club. And yeah, I hope they're back. But ultimately, it's the start of what's going to be a very tough few weeks and months, I think, for clubs, with the end of May coming up and contracts expiring. And I think we're going to see a lot of activity, especially from sort of the smaller Premiership clubs and the Championship and lower clubs, of players being released. And it's not great to see. Ultimately, clubs have got to look after themselves, but you've got to worry for some of these players now. They're going to have big decisions to make with the uncertainty around football, and yeah, it's going to be tough for everyone involved. Anyway, that's just kind of my reaction to the news out of East End Park today. If you haven't been on the channel before, make sure to check out all the other podcasts and other videos, especially the Derek Ray podcast. Fantastic. I know we keep going on about it, but it was really good. And yeah, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for all other content coming soon. We will have Ryan back. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, I'm not too sure, with another FM video on our Scotland Road to Euro 2020 series. So yeah, we'll see you all soon. Cheers.